And on the DOJ subject, you know as well as I do that Merrick Garland was leaking. His DOJ was leaking to the Washington Post and the New York Times about what was allegedly found in the Trump stash down at Mar-a-Lago. Oh, nuclear secrets. They wanted us to believe he was selling nuclear secrets to some enemy. That was the clear implication, that he was some sort of double agent. I mean, it was absolutely absurd where they went with it. And there's no way that those organizations would have known any of that had they not gotten the leaks from the DOJ. So to them, he wants to make Trump look bad, he leaks. But now, not only are we not going to get any information from the DOJ, even though KJP is like, go to the DOJ, go to the DOJ, but we now find out he's been silent on this since November, that he was told they found the original tranche of documents in Joe Biden's office in early November before the midterms, and he cooperated to keep it quiet. Another batch, December 20th, kept it quiet. And, you know, again, in that same Garrity piece, he raises the question of, does anybody think this would have been a huge game changer before the midterms? Probably not, but can we really say? He points out the following, Glenn. Could it have cost Democrats the 310 votes in New Mexico's 2nd Congressional District that made the difference? The 1,600 plus votes in Colorado's 8th, 1,800 plus votes in Connecticut's 5th, or 2,600 plus votes in Washington's 3rd district? We don't know. Those are pretty tight. Maybe those are people on the fence. A lot of independents were thought to go, that they were going to go Republican, and they went Democrat last minute, which was unusual in a midterm election. They usually vote for the party out of power. And who knows whether this would have been the last straw, sickening, disgusting thing that would have changed the vote. We don't know, but there won't be a press inquiring as to that question.
Megyn, this is why I will probably go to my grave still talking about what happened before the 2020 election with regard to the lie that was circulated by former intelligence officials and then ratified by the media and used by big tech to censor the reporting about Joe Biden, namely this complete fabrication that the Hunter Biden laptop was, quote, Russian disinformation. Because whether or not it would have swung the election, and that was an extremely close election, and so had the public gotten to hear things like what Joe Biden was doing and trading on his family's name, or his brother and son were doing and trading on his name in China and Ukraine in order to profit not just themselves, but Joe Biden himself, maybe it wouldn't have had any effect. We'll never know. But it was an attempt to manipulate the election with an outright lie. Everyone now admits those documents on the Hunter Biden laptop were authentic. Everyone honest knew at the time those documents were authentic. I was willing to stake my career on it because I quit The Intercept when they refused to let me write about it by claiming, oh, we don't know what's authentic. I knew they were authentic, just like, you know, in the same way that we've authenticated other documents. When you have the Justice Department, the FBI, the CIA interfering in our domestic politics and specifically our elections to try and generate an outcome that they prefer and avoid the one they don't prefer, that is a very grave threat to our democratic values. And that's exactly what is happening with these agencies.
Mm-hmm. Well, this subject came up on the Sunday shows with Chuck Todd, who purports to be, he's no Tim Russert. I mean, he purports to be the sort of fair and tough on both sides. Obviously, it's not true. And he had Ron Johnson, a Republican from Wisconsin, a senator, on his show on Meet the Press on Sunday. And they were talking about Hunter Biden and the investigations that are now going to take place. And Ron Johnson was having to defend himself on wanting to pursue these investigations into what Hunter Biden did under his dad's name and what benefit there was to the sitting president of the United States, now, then, for a period of Hunter's antics, the sitting vice president or immediately post-vice president about to run for president. All these things make him compromised if he was potentially in on some financial scheme with foreign countries and so on through his son. We'll never know the full extent unless we investigate. So Ron Johnson wants to, and Chuck Todd was pressing him on it, and listen to how this went.
I'll take it at your word that you're ethically bothered by Hunter Biden. I'm curious, though. You seem to have a pattern.
Are you not?
I seem to have a pattern. I'm a journalist. I have to deal in facts.
Are you not?
I deal in facts.
I'm concerned about getting the truth. I don't target individuals. Target individuals.
You don't? You're targeting Hunter Biden multiple times on this show, Senator. You're targeting an individual.
Chuck, Chuck, part of the problem, and this is pretty obvious to anybody watching this, is you don't invite me on to interview me. You invite me on to argue with me. Part of the reasons our politics are inflamed is we do not have an unbiased media. We don't. It's unfortunate. I'm all for a free press.
Well,
it needs to be more unbiased.
Senator,
there's
look,
misinformation on both sides, but the
Senator,
censorship and
Senator,
suppression
look, we're trying to do
primarily
issues here
occurs
in
from
facts.
the left.
Partisan cable. Look, you can go back on your partisan cable cocoon and talk about media bias all you want. I understand it's part of your identity.
Wow. This is the same guy who has a show on MSNBC. He's part of the partisan cable cocoon and has been for a long time. But I love his I'm above it all. At one point there, he says, I have skepticism of both parties. Really? Where's the evidence of that? Is that, maybe it pops up every 10th interview or so for a moment, but you don't. And he's putting it back on him, saying, look, there's really no reason. I'll accept, I guess, that your interest in Hunter is sincere, right? I'll take you at your word that you are ethically bothered. And this is Ron Johnson saying, why wouldn't you want us to look into this, right? Glenn, what do you make of it?
I mean, first of all, obviously what Chuck Todd meant there when he said go back to your partisan cocoon is he's saying Fox News is a partisan cocoon, whereas we on all these other networks and the rest of the media are not. And Megyn, I don't know if you remember this, but even before you and I had ever spoken, I think I had never been on your show at that point, the Politico did a profile of you and said as part of that profile, I have almost no political agreements with Megyn Kelly, but the thing that I respect so much about the show she has is that she is so harsh on leaders of the Republican Party in a way that you would never, ever see CNN and MSNBC hosts being with Democratic Party officials. And I continue to believe that that's, just the other day, Tucker Carlson goes on his show and says, why aren't we seeing Mitch McConnell's tax returns? Where did all of his wealth come from? This is the senior Republican in Washington. So that's supposedly the partisan cocoon, a network that constantly criticizes and attacks Republican leaders in a journalistic way. You will never hear on MSNBC or CNN any major critiques of senior Democratic leaders in Washington, anything like what Tucker said many other times or other people on Fox say about Republicans. And the fact that, as Ron Johnson said, you're telling me, why am I interested? Why aren't you interested? We know for sure that Hunter Biden was trading on his father's name in a critical country, Ukraine, which we're now centrally involved in to the point of a clear proxy war. Whatever you think of that war, you're for it or against it. It's a very dangerous war. We're centrally involved in it. We know that the Biden family was heavily involved in trying to profit and did profit in Ukraine. Why would you not want to investigate that? And why is it left to the Republican Party to do? We have a media that's supposed to be doing that. And the fact that they refuse to, it's amazing. That clip from Chuck Todd proved everything Ron Johnson was saying.
Exactly right. And that wasn't the only one. There was another exchange Chuck Todd had with James Comer about investigations into Hunter Biden. And he tries to dismiss it all as, you got a personal vendetta, Comer. This is personal for you. Listen to this.
There are emails and text messages that show Hunter Biden complaining about having to spend so much money keeping his dad up. I mean, that's a concern because Hunter Biden's only source of income were from our adversaries in China and Russia for influence peddling. So this is something that we should look into. This isn't political. We want to know, was the president truthful when he said he didn't have any knowledge or involvement of his family's shady business dealings? Once we determine that, we'll move on.
Well, it does sound personal at that, and we'll see how the year goes on.
Okay. Let me just, this House Oversight Committee chairman, James Comer, he gets ripped. It's personal if you want to go after Hunter. Ron Johnson gets ripped. Go back to your partisan cable cocoon if you think it's media bias that I'm not interested in Hunter Biden. And let's just see, maybe Chuck Todd just has no interest in investigations of members of the president's family. Maybe he thinks that's just a waste of taxpayer time. We shouldn't bother. Right. Oh, you know what? There's tape. Let's just take a look. Let's take a look back. When Trump was president, and let's see how he sounded back then. Top 5.
Donald Trump's campaign may have all sorts of problems, but one thing we know, it's been good for business. His business. The Trump campaign paid nearly $5,000 to Eric Trump Wine Manufacturing. The campaign has spent over $6 million at Trump-owned businesses. What do you believe that Deutsche Bank financial records are going to show you?
If this is a form of compromise. It needs to be exposed.
You now believe that the Trump Organization is a criminal enterprise?
Let's just say that they committed crimes.
Mr. Trump sought to make millions in business dealings with Russia during the campaign. And no, the investigation was not a witch hunt.
And we could go. I mean, honestly, that clip could have gone on for another 5 minutes, targeting the children and so on. Very different story now.
Megyn, when I first started writing about politics in 2005, when I was a lawyer and then kind of had a career change, one of my primary critiques of the media was that they were insufficiently adversarial to the government. They would fail to challenge statements by government leaders that often were untrue or dubious. They would kind of just, pass them along. I never liked the form of journalism that said, this side says this side says this. Who are we to decide who's right? I think it is the job of journalists trying to find the truth and not just pass along mindlessly what each side was saying. And so sometimes people would ask me during the Trump years, when the media was being so adversarial to Trump, well, the kinds of things Chuck Todd was raising, some of those are legitimate questions. Aren't you happy that the media is now being more adversarial to the government? I would say I would be throwing parties if I thought that this was really a change in media behavior that was going to endure past the
right.
Trump administration. But since I know that it's not going to, that this is specific to Donald Trump, that the minute there's a Democrat in the White House or there's a Republican who's more acceptable, a kind of more establishment type that they like a little bit more and can live with, all of that behavior is going to disappear. And you just, you could spend, as you say, weeks showing videotape that demonstrate that exactly the kinds of things they were doing and questions they were asking during the Trump years are now suddenly ones they've declared off limits with Joe Biden in the White House.
It's been a while since you've heard me talking about the amazing extreme altitude wines from the Bonner Private Wine Partnership, but they're back with an amazing offer for my audience. It's winter, and these flavors go great with any hearty meal. They do. You're going to love it. And with any meat you're going to have. They're unlike any wine you've ever tasted. Blackberry, leather, smoke, little dark cherry in there too. That makes everything better. The wines are almost impossible to get on your own. The producers deep in the Andes Mountains make limited quantities, you see. But today, I have an amazing offer that I have not had before. If you visit bonnerprivatewines.com/MKS, you will not only get wine for over 50% off, plus free shipping, you will also get a bonus bottle of small batch limited wine production from their exclusive wine cellar. That's 4 bottles for the price of 3. It's a deal that's hard to turn down if you are a wine lover like I am. They have cut out the middleman, so you will not pay a big markup. You just visit Bonner, BONNER, privatewines.com/MKS to claim your bonus bottle and become a part of America's most unique wine club. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.